there are a couple of critically necessary changes. First, the UN must act to keep the worst human rights abusers from obtaining seats on the Council. As it stands, elections for membership to the Council are over before the voting even begins. Regional blocs nominate slates of predetermined candidates that never face any competition for votes. No competition means no scrutiny of candidates' human rights records. We must change the election so countries are forced to make the case for membership based on their records, not on their promises. Selection of members must occur out in the open for all to see. The secret ballot must be replaced with open voting. Countries that are willing to support human rights violators to serve on the Human Rights Council must be willing to show their faces. They know who they are. It's time for the world to know who they are. Second, the Council's agenda item 7 must be removed. This, of course, is the scandalous provision that singles out Israel for automatic criticism. There is no legitimate human rights reason for this agenda item to exist. It is the central flaw that turns the Human Rights Council from an organization that can be a force for universal good into an organization that is overwhelmed by a political agenda. Since its creation, the Council has passed more than 70 resolutions targeting Israel. It has passed just 7 on Iran. This relentless, pathological campaign against a country that actually has a strong human rights record makes a mockery not of Israel, but of the Council itself. The Council's effort to create a database designed to shame companies for doing business in Israeli-controlled areas is just the latest in this long line of shameful actions. Blacklisting companies without even looking at their employment practices or their contributions to local empowerment, but rather based entirely on their location in areas of conflict, is contrary to the laws of international trade and to any reasonable definition of human rights. It is an attempt to provide an international stamp of approval to the anti-Semitic BDS movement. It must be rejected. Getting rid of Agenda Item 7 would not give Israel preferential treatment. Claims against Israel could still be brought under Agenda Item 4, just as claims can be brought there against any other country. Rather, removal of Item 7 would put all countries on equal footing. The Council is no more justified in having a separate agenda item on Israel than it is on having one for the United States or Canada or France or the United Kingdom. More appropriate would be to have an agenda item on North Korea, Iran, and Syria, the world's leading violators of human rights. These changes are the minimum necessary to resuscitate the Council as a respected advocate of universal human rights. For our part, the United States will not sit quietly while this body, supposedly dedicated to human rights, continues to damage the cause of human rights. In the end, no speech and no structural reforms will save the members of the Human Rights Council from themselves. If they continue to put politics ahead of human rights, they will continue to damage the cause that they supposedly serve. All those years ago, Mrs. Roosevelt understood this. She was engaged in building an institution to bring the nations of the world together to protect the most vulnerable. But she knew the good she was seeking would not come from that institution, but from the hearts of men and women who would work in it. Every night she prayed, "Save us from ourselves and show us a vision of a world made new." I believe that vision is still achievable. I believe we can come together. I know there are many who share the belief. The status quo is not acceptable. It is not a place for countries who champion human rights. I call on all like-minded countries to join making the Human Rights Council reach its intended purpose. Let the world be on notice. We will never give up the cause of universal human rights. Whether it's here or in other venues, we will continue this fight. Thank you.